we know that you've got a very strong view on this consolidation proposal. You sent a letter out to clubs and interested parties. Tell us what's happened since then.
Well, we want a minimum stake of $10,000 and that's well on the way. I think we'll have the minimum stake in New Zealand. We don't want them chopping from 10 to 8 races on feature meetings or any meetings. If we've got the horses there to run 10 races or 11 races, we'll run them. And we don't want any clubs to lose their meetings. I mean, it's hard enough for all the clubs in New Zealand, the way the infrastructure of New Zealand racing. A lot of clubs are voluntary. And we want to support them and support the people that live in these places, and because they bet on all the other races. And to say the industry's down on the foal numbers and the horses racing is total bull. Last year it was up about 50 foals on the year before, and wait and have a look. But they haven't taken into account the horses that are coming in that are bred overseas into our foal crop. And the number of starters in New Zealand, I'm saying is we'll have more this year than we had last year. So then what will they be saying? Oh, we've got to cut races for that. So I'm hoping that we'll have around 6,000 runners in New Zealand, which hasn't been done before, I don't think. But if we get 5,600, 5,700, I think they've got to be real happy.
Look, you've led the charge on this. You're a vigilante and good on you too, and I mean that in a positive sense. How do we, therefore, get minimum stakes of say, 10K without losing meetings?
I think there's many ways we can do it, and I think the TAB, they've got to look at it. Our racing board is looking at a lot of issues. They've got, it's only going to cost $3.5 million. I had a very positive meeting with John Allen and the racing board. I think our government can come and do things. I think our industry within the next 12 months will really be on fire. I look what Auckland's doing. They're having minimum stakes at their big meetings of 50,000. You get a few blokes on the committee that know a bit about money and a thing, and they're doing these deals. And there's many clubs that are doing that. And I think the TAB's the main one with our fixed odds and all our betting. I don't want to go into that, but what they're looking at, you know, we're looking at probably 15 to 30 million more money come into racing. But I think it's got to be spread all around New Zealand to all the clubs, and I think it's very positive.
You raise a good question, got to be spread around. What do you think the future is, therefore? Because I know the consolidation proposal was going to be tough on particularly some of the South Island clubs and the rural clubs. What's their future?
I think the rural clubs have got a real good future. Look at Wairoa, their 2 days, their farming account, their thing, they were going to cut them down to 1. And now they tell me, oh, don't worry about your club, Wairoa. It's not my club, it's a club I do support. And Blenheim and Riverton, there's many clubs around New Zealand. I don't think we want to lose any of them, the rural clubs. I think there's a place in New Zealand racing for them. We don't need grandstands and that at those sort of places. All we want's a racetrack and the horses to race there.
Roger, if I go to war, I want you on my side.
Well, I think they've got to realise now, and I think they've had their head in the sand for a long time. They're starting to pull it out, and let's see if they do what they say they're going to do.
Dave, there's been a fair bit of discussion around a document put out by NZTR around a reduction in races. There's been a response from Graham Rogerson, and he met with NZTR recently with Lisa Ladder. Your own personal views around that press release and document from NZTR?
Well, yeah, to me it's a really worrying thing. Any more reduction in racing in New Zealand at the moment, and it frightens me. I mean, we'll get more participants leaving, be like Burr Rabbit exiting left. But you know, I just don't believe we can survive without the racing we've got at the present moment. And sure, they can do some tweaking, I'm sure of that, in the winter months. I'm sure they can reduce numbers of race meetings and maybe a race or two. But you know, in the whole, I mean, we need the racing we've got at the moment. It worries me, especially when you look at Wellington, that's going to lose a day. I mean, that will be a feature day. So that's a Saturday, it's a showcase day. I think when the Central Districts we lose 9 or 10 meetings, and if we lose too many feature days, being Saturdays, you know, what are we going to do with the horses? What are we going to do with the people? People that are racing people, and you know, what would happen to the All Blacks if the rugby union decided to start stopping schoolboy rugby, etc.? We've got to maintain our meetings, I believe, and we need to look for support. We've got to keep going. You know, if this doesn't work and they retract us by say 10 meetings this year, and it's not working in 2 years' time, what are they going to do then?
There's a buzzword out there, and it is rationalisation, which basically means we reduce the number of clubs that we have in this country. Is that something that you think should be looked at or not?
Yeah, we can, you know, you can rationalise clubs and you rationalise venues, which is what they want to do. And there is a general thought out there that if they were to close down some racecourses, or the odd club would call it quits, that they would, you know, that they could sell their properties and racing would take the money. But I mean, I just don't think that will happen. 100% won't happen. A lot of the courses aren't owned by the clubs; they're owned by the community. And if a club is going to close its door, I can't see them handing the money back. That's the general impression at what I hear and I feel. And when you're going to start rationalising racing clubs and venues, which sure sounds nice, but where are we going to rationalise? Where are we going to go to? I mean, in the central districts, sure, it'd be nice to go to Manawatu and race every 3 or 4 days, but I mean, the track just won't stand it. It's a swamp now. Otaki's a swamp. Wellington's a swamp in the winter. So, I mean, what are we going to do? Where are we going to race? It's all well and good. Like you see this hat on my head, Carfields, and I'm involved in the livestock industry. And our industry spent a lot of money in the fielding sale yards. Consequently, they've developed a facility second to none. It's a tremendous facility. Everybody likes to use it, but it's there, it's operating, it's working. In racing, we haven't got that facility to go to. So they're going to ask us to not go to, you know, Haras and Waverleys and Stratfords and places, and go to Manawatu. But in this country of population we've got, are the Manawatu people going to support racing in the Manawatu and for everyone else right the way through? You'll find they won't. So we need to get to the provinces to keep racing going and keep it stimulated, and to get the earn from the people that are in these areas.
Well, we've got to grow the pie somehow, and is that something that has to go to government? Because government supports Australia with a lot of money. We tend to not get that same support here in NZ.
Well, no, we don't, you know, and it staggers me. The government take tens of millions of dollars and have done for year after year, but I don't think we get much help or understanding from the government at all. We've got a Minister of Racing in Nathan Guy, and he's basically my neighbour. I've known him for years, and he's a tremendously nice chap. But he's also holds a portfolio for Minister of Agriculture, or whatever you might like to call it. But, you know, he's a particularly busy man. He's got one of the most important portfolios in the government. And, you know, you can't tell me there's not somebody else there that could take over racing's portfolio and hopefully maybe understand our industry a little better and somehow get some. It's not government money, it's our own money. It's the money we've earned, surely, and get some of it back in. And John Key, you know, I've heard so much about John Key and what a clever man he is, and that's fine, he might well be. Well, he well understands the benefit of investment. And surely if he can't see that if we had some investment in New Zealand racing, i.e. some of our own money back into stakes, which would in turn give people confidence to go back out to the marketplace and continue and race horses and race better quality horses. Because that's another one of our problems, is that, you know, you get a horse that's half decent and we're selling them because we can't survive.
Has to be a united front. If we go to the government, we've been splintered in a lot of ways for a long period of time. So if we're going to approach government and ask for these sort of, or ask for our money back, it has to be a united front, and good, strong consultation has to take place.
Yeah, I mean, that's essential, and you get nowhere unless everybody's on the right page, and we need to, and it's, you know, it's really, really important, but we just can't go round. You know, I've got my ideas and you've got yours, and, you know, Roger's got his and Alan Sharrock's got his, but we've got to collectively get the one, go and sing from the same song, because if we do, I hope we'll get some help. But at the moment we're desperate. I mean, the people are living on the moss on the battens at the moment, and if we don't do something and we don't get some help, I hate to think where we'll be in another 5 years.
You talked about investment in our resources. Does that not only mean stands and what we give to the punter on a race day, but an artificial track, a track through the winter that you can put your horse out and be comfortable with conditions?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's lots of twos and throws about that, the cost of synthetic tracks, etc. I mean, the industry spent a fair bit of money at Ruakaka, and I've never raced a horse there, haven't even been to see it, but I understand it's very good. It's a long, long way to go, and that's a question some people have trouble grasping. But in the central districts, we need to find a facility somewhere that they can spend a little bit of money on that will give us a better surface to race on during the winter. I believe we have the property, but we just can't keep running around on bogs and heavy tracks in the winter. We need to find something somewhere that gives us a better footing, so the punter's got a bit more confidence and he might have a go. So if it be a synthetic track somewhere, well, okay. Maybe it would be good, but we haven't got the money for a synthetic track, so we need to look at an alternative venue. And I'm sorry, but it's not Manawatu or Otaki or Wellington, because they get 10 foot deep in mud.
The status quo, it's not good enough at the moment. As you said, people are licking moss off the walls, so something has to change, and I think everyone has to get together, put their heads together and go forward with the plan.
Yeah, they do, and we've got to get the right plan, of course, but we need some help, and it's all about money. We haven't got enough money in stakes. You can close as many racecourses down as you like and rationalise and pull race meetings back, but that will not be the answer. There is only one way, and we need to race for some money, a good stake at some stage. Roger wants to see $10,000 minimum races. I'd love to see that, but in the end of the day, I don't know that we can afford it. My idea, and it's only my idea, is that we race, that there is an opportunity for owners and trainers and jockeys alike to compete for a good stake at some stage every 3 weeks or 4 weeks in the North Island. Otherwise, why would you bother?
Rick, your chance to explain the consolidation process now. Obviously, it's been in the ropes for a long time now.
Obviously, look, what we have decided as a board and the management is that we simply can't keep continuing what we're doing and expect different outcomes. So prize money's the key for investment. We've got a situation where the foal crop's dropped dramatically in the last 5 years. We're down 1,000 foals, and so to get that investment up again, we've got to consolidate. It means less meetings, and obviously it affects some clubs more than others.
Okay, the process can't be easy for you, but in the long run, say in 5 years' time, do you obviously see this as being a good thing?
Oh, obviously. Look, we've got to... It's just impossible to carry on with the model we've had. We've had incremental improvements in prize money, but everyone's telling us, and all our surveys tell us, that the owners are getting out and people are getting out of breeding. So to turn that around and to get investment back at the industry at all levels, we've got to consolidate, we've got to get the prize money up.
So basically we're looking at less racing, more money. Would that be fair to say?
Less racing, more money, and probably doing things a lot better in terms of customer experience and the way we put on our race days.
Right, so you're confident that the owners are going to be winning out of this deal?
Well, they have to. You know, if they don't win, we haven't got an industry, and we're going to get forced into it to some extent. The exports are about 1,500. There were 4,500 foals, and now there's 3,500. So you're down 1,000 horses available to go into the racing pool in New Zealand in the next 2 or 3 years.
Okay, in terms of feedback, I'm sure you've had plenty of that as well?
Yeah, some positive and some negative, which is what we expect. And I mean, this is out there for discussion, and it is a discussion paper, and we'll be going to our next board meeting and getting the feedback from management. We've got a roadshow on the road later this month, and we'll be going around explaining it to all the clubs and getting their views on it.
All right, can you see anything being revised in the process at this stage?
Well, it's always up for revision, but the principles will stay the same. We will be contracting, and there will be 22 meetings missing in this 2016-17 year. There may be some juggling around that, but essentially they've been the worst performing meetings as far as profitability goes.
All right, so does that mean it could be the beginning of the end for the smaller clubs?
No, I don't think so, because community racing and the board and Greg Purcell have always been consistent on that. There's always going to be a place for community racing, and what shape it takes, and it's really over to the communities to make those days work.